Ron Fournier of the National Journal wrote something that ran today about,
This was after he expressed himself last night on the panel.
Yeah, so the headline was, why I'm getting tired of defending Obamacare. And, I'm going to say amen, brother, because it's exactly how I feel. People who have supported this law, who support universal health care, are constantly put in a position of having to defend this president who has really incompetently put this together, rolled it out, and that's why he has to do this. That's why he has to keep doing this, because it's not working.
That was Fox's own Kirsten Powers on Special Report last night, admitting how difficult it is now to continue to defend the train wreck that is Obamacare. She isn't alone in her disappointment with the law. Take a look at this Americans for Prosperity ad, which slams Democratic Senator Mary Landrieu for her support of Obamacare.
Dear Mrs. Kelly, your family plan is no longer available under the Affordable Care Act.
Dear Ms. Davis, we can no longer offer you the same policy. Your doctor is no longer in the network due to the Affordable Care Act.
Due to the Affordable Care Act, your monthly premium has increased. No longer covered due to the Affordable Care Act.
Send Senator Landrieu a message. Obamacare is hurting Louisiana families.
And here with reaction to this and much more, the always outspoken author, columnist, Ann Coulter is back. Ann, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
All right, so Kirsten Powers, Ron Fournier, by the way, welcome. Finally, they see what we saw a long time ago. This isn't going to work. And I'm not being cynical here, but if they're saying it and they're liberals and they supported it, there's got to be a lot more. Do you think there's any way this law does not survive?
Oh, yeah.
Explain.
I mean, you're nicer to liberals than I am. All they're doing is admitting the obvious. What are they supposed to say? The web rollout went fantastically well, and congratulations. They're admitting the blindingly obvious. But no, this idea that Obamacare just falls on its own has really got to be strenuously explained as being false. The government moves into anything. It gets worse. It gets more expensive. That doesn't mean we've done anything about public education or the government's takeover of the train system in America or the government's takeover of New York City subways that are smelly and gross and unbelievably expensive. They used to be run by private companies.
But here's what I want to ask you.
This will stay unless people vote for Republicans. That is the only way to repeal this, and Republicans better pay attention to that too and stop primarying our own guys. We have got to pick up every possible seat this time, and that is the only way this gets repealed. Otherwise, your health care just gets worse and worse and more expensive.
They don't have the White House, so they're not going to get a filibuster-proof majority in the U.S. Senate, so the problem is, or a supermajority, so they're not going to have that. So they're admitting failure. The president unilaterally has changed it 27 times. It's on life support. The American people don't want it. How do you get rid of it if he's still the president?
Well, first of all, I think it's worth mentioning that if we hadn't had novelty candidates like Christine O'Donnell and the wrestling lady in Connecticut, we would be getting very close. A veto-proof majority would be within reach. But because of wasted candidates in the last two election cycles, with Republicans constantly giving up toss-up seats, as I describe in my latest book, Never Trust a Liberal Over Three, I go through a half dozen seats that Republicans, I mean, briefly, it's not that boring, that Republicans gave up through stupidity, incompetence, through greed, through making money for themselves. If you love your country, this has to be stopped. Republicans have to stop this primarying of our own guys. And Americans have to understand, I don't care how much you like the Democrats, unless you want health care wrecked, you have to vote Republican because this has to be repealed. And I would also add, it will not be repealed, as you say. We do need the presidency. Well, we're never going to have the presidency if Marco Rubio's immigration bill goes through.
He doesn't support his own. No, he's changed his own position on the bill. So he said it was a mistake.
Well, too bad. It's already passed.
All right, but it's not going anywhere in the House. Let me move on. You've been following Wendy Davis. She's like the new rock star in the Democratic Party, and they love her down in Texas, we're told. Dallas Morning News has a piece that just came out that she would have supported a new ban on abortion after 20 weeks if the law adequately deferred to the women and her doctor. Now, you've been following her conflicting positions and her flipping and flopping and flailing. Is that the same Wendy Davis involved in the filibuster? Is that the same position she had?
I don't know what that even means. Defer to the woman and her doctor after 20 weeks? I mean, that's just, you know, a loophole you can drive a truck through. But, I mean, it reminds me, it is such an appalling thing about the Democratic Party that they're so smitten with a woman because she's going to stand up for killing babies. Oh, that's great. That's really speaking truth to power. I think she's figured out that that isn't so popular in Texas as it is in, you know, the media, the newsrooms across America and in the Oval Office, I might add. One thing I'd mention about Wendy Davis, all these glorious pieces, and making up for how she lied about going from being a single mother in a trailer park to Harvard Law School, and that is because I think some conservatives may be making some errors here. Nobody's complaining about what kind of mother she was. We don't care what kind of mother she is. She lied about having this enormous hardship and going from hardship of single mother, raising my kids, supporting a family, and wow, to Harvard Law School, when in fact we now know she got a sugar daddy and she was who paid for her law school, who took care of the kids. I don't care that the husband took care of the kids. The point is, she has a very low hardship that she was lying about. It's like a politician claiming he won a Bronze Star in Vietnam, and then we find out he didn't. She was lying about the level of difficulty of getting from where she was to Harvard Law School. It's a lot easier when you have somebody paying for your law school tuition and raising your kids.
So you think
but
her
I
whole
don't care that
story's
she
a lie.
did it that way.
Claire McCaskill said to Mark Halpern yesterday that if she were campaigning this year up for re-election, that she wouldn't campaign with Obama. How effective would Obama be on the campaign trail this year? And do you think the ads showing these senators in red states, Democratic senators, saying if you like your plan, you can keep it, how effective do you think that's going to be?
I think it's the most important issue, and I cannot see anything changing that. Obviously, the Obama-friendly media will try to change the subject to anything else, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard with people. They're getting their premium notices in the mail, and oh, great, now they've put it off. The requirement for the smaller employees, unconstitutionally, I might add, but there's now, you know, a caveat to the Constitution. You can't impeach a president if he's our first black president. But this idea that Obama can just switch the implementation of the law in order to avoid the midterm election, I still think enough people are being hurt. You know, I've talked about on Fox News and on Twitter a friend of mine whose sister was thrown off her insurance plan because of Obamacare. She got a fever. She put off going to the hospital because the new Obamacare plan hadn't kicked in, and she died. It turns out she had septic shock. It was some sort of gallbladder infection. Her funeral is today. How many people at that funeral you think are going to be voting for any Democrat on any ballot, any
Every
place?
day.
They can't stop what this
Every
law
week,
is doing.
Every month, they're losing their plans and they're paying more. The exact opposite of what they were promised. All right, Ann, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good to see you, Sean.
Coming up